D'Amico Ryans promised us starters on defense for this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So who's Justin Fields, the former Bears quarterback turned Steelers quarterback, going to see out there when he takes his first snaps? Let's talk about it. Thanks to my friends at BetUS for sponsoring this video. Check out the link in the description down below. The Texans will play a lot of their starters on defense. Not everybody. Who's in, who's out, we're going to talk about it. And when the guys are out, who's replacing them in the starting rotation for this matchup in Pittsburgh, the second preseason game for the Houston Texans. Let's start front to back on this defense and talk a little bit about who we expect to see tonight in this matchup. Let's start at the defensive end spot. You want the good news or the bad news first? All right, well, I got the good news for you first. I expect to see Danielle Hunter in this one. 55 in a Texans uniform, hunting, pun intended, down Justin Fields. He's been fantastic in training camp. He looks unblockable at times. He hits this nasty spin move from time to time. I'm really excited to see Danielle Hunter out there. He's not going to have Will Anderson across from him, though. Anderson dealing with some stuff here, a little bit of a soft tissue injury, and he didn't practice in Cleveland. The 3 practices that the Texans had, he watched one of the practices, but didn't practice in Cleveland, so wouldn't expect to see 51 out there. In his place, I would tell you that it's going to be Derek Barnett opposite Danielle Hunter. Barnett's actually had a really good. I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table with Danielle Hunter rushing opposite him. Of course, those ends, their job gets a little bit easier when those defensive tackles are taking care of their business. A defensive tackle, 2 veterans, 2 guys that have been around the block quite a bit. How about Mario Edwards and Foley Fatukasi at the defensive tackle spot? Now, this doesn't sound super exciting, and if you haven't paid a ton of attention, you might not exactly know who these 2 guys are, but they have been wreaking havoc in Texans training camp. They have been an absolute terror to Shaq Mason and Juice Scruggs and Kenyon Green, and I'm excited to watch these 2 vets do it to somebody else's interior offensive line. Look, we saw Kenyon Green and Juice Scruggs play pretty well in the first preseason game and take care of their business, running the football and doing some pass blocking. And so Edwards and Fatukasi having good performances in Texans training camp, you obviously do worry a little bit that it's just Scruggs and Mason and Green not getting the job done. But the way Scruggs and Green played in the preseason, albeit against players that weren't quite to the same level as Fatukasi and Edwards, it gives me a little bit of hope. And then Shaq Mason's Mr. Steady, Mr. Reliable, the Iron Man from last year's offensive line. So Fatukasi and Edwards, excited to watch them. Edwards has quite the pass rush prowess to him. He's darted in there and had a couple of sacks in training camp. And then Fatukasi, and he just stops guys from moving. He's been an absolute menace to the rushing attack for the Texans in practice. So that is a fun watch. And those are actually the 2 players outside of Danielle Hunter I am most excited to watch in that front 7 for the Houston Texans against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's drop it back a little bit to linebacker. Agent Zero should be in a Texans uniform and taking care of business. Green dot on the helmet, Azeez Al-Shire in the middle of this defense. And I would expect that Henry To'o and Jake Hansen will be out there with him. Look, the Texans play a lot of 2 linebacker situations, but I would say that To'o and Hansen should be out there with them. We know Christian Harris hasn't practiced yet in training camp. That's beginning to get a little worrisome that there could be some effects lingering through a large portion of the preseason and maybe even into the regular season for Harris, but can't worry about that tomorrow. It's game day today. So To'o and Hansen, and Jake Hansen's had a really nice training camp so far. We saw him last week in the preseason game. He had to leave early because that big hit on the kickoff that he was able to lay on the return guy for the Bears. But Hansen out there on the field with this defense, and then To'o getting the opportunity there because of no Harris and the experience last year with this defense. Maybe you might sneak Neville Hewitt in there, but I'd say Al-Shire, To'o, and Jake Hansen are your linebackers for this one. Take a quick look at the lines for tonight. Look, the Texans' favorites on this one on the road got to be because they've already played a little bit of preseason action. They've knocked the rust off. The Steelers haven't. And, of course, the Texans have announced they're playing a lot of their starters. The Steelers, not so much. But if you want to bet on this game, my friends at BetUS are the place to do it. The link in the description down below is where you can get signed up. And you're going to get a 125% deposit match up to $2,000 when you sign up on my link in the description down below. And you get that offer on your first 3 deposits. How fantastic is that? BetUS, America's favorite sports book for over 30 years. Use the link in the description down below. All right, let's talk about that secondary. You want the good news or the bad news in the secondary first? All right, let's go with the bad news first in the secondary. No Kamari Lassiter, a little banged up right now, didn't practice in the 3 practices in Cleveland, so no rookie in a uniform against somebody else. But Lassiter's been fantastic in training camp, and you don't need to rush him back again. Same thing with Anderson. You still got a preseason game, and you still got a joint practice with the Rams, and that's really where I want to see Kamari Lassiter. Give me Kamari Lassiter and Cooper Kupp in that joint practice later in August. That's what I really want to see in the preseason out of the rookie. Well, because there's no Kamari Lassiter, I would tell you that C.J. Henderson is going to start for this Texans team with Derek Stingley. Why C.J. Henderson? Well, Jeff Okudah not expected to play in this one. He didn't practice in Cleveland either, so it turns to C.J. Henderson and then Derek Stingley. It's Sting! He's been fantastic in training camp, pass breakups, multiple interception practices. He's as good as he's been. And think about all these guys banged up, hurt, missing time. Not Stingley, Mr. Consistent, out there all the time. He's got to stay healthy. The preseason game doesn't matter a ton to him when it comes to health. He's got to be healthy in the regular season, but it's nice that he's had no sign of any issues here in the preseason so far. Now, here's a little caveat here. This is not quite a starter, but it could be a starter because you could have him out there on the first time. I believe we're going to see Jalen Petrie get the start at nickel. So that slot cornerback position, I believe we're going to see Jalen Petrie in that slot cornerback position first for the Texans. He's been repping it in training camp. They're trying to get him used to it. He's even been doing some of the individuals with the slot cornerback. So I believe we're going to see number 5 in that slot cornerback spot. It's kind of a starting position. It's kind of not a starting position. But look for Jalen Petrie to get those first opportunities at slot cornerback in this game. And that leaves us with the safeties. And, of course, this is going to be Jimmy Ward and Eric Murray if Petrie is down in that slot cornerback spot. This, of course, could be Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie if they don't put a slot cornerback on the field initially. But I would expect if Petrie's on the field in the slot cornerback spot, you're going to see Eric Murray and Jimmy Ward, the 2 veterans, back there in the secondary. And Jimmy Ward, a little bit of friendly fire on Stefon Diggs this week. Hey, let's see 20 go out there and hit somebody not in Texans colors in this matchup. And for Eric Murray, I mean, he's a nice veteran player. Let's see what he brings to the table. So there's your starting defense projection from me for tonight's matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It should be a pretty entertaining one for the defense because Justin Fields and his mobility present a unique opportunity to practice against that. Look, CJ Stroud can move. He's not moving like Justin Fields. And you look at some of the players that you're going to face on your schedule over the course of the season, like Anthony Richardson and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. It'd be nice to get a look at some of those mobile quarterbacks that you're going to end up facing, or use Justin Fields and the look against him to get you ready for some of those mobile quarterbacks that the Texans will be facing over the course of this season. Fields presents that opportunity. Preseason game number 2. Let me know in the comment section what you think about that potential starting lineup for the Houston Texans, and who are you more disappointed not going to play? Lassiter, Anderson, you worried about any of them? I'm not worried about those guys. A little worried about Christian Harris, but we'll talk about that if that continues to linger over the course of training camp. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please visit my friends at BetUS. Of course, this video powered by my friends at BetUS. Check out the link in the description down below for your 125% deposit match, up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits. And we appreciate them for sponsoring this video. Appreciate you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.